Welcome to This Commerce Life. We are an unscripted podcast dedicated to small businesses and entrepreneurs in the retail and consumer packaged goods space in Canada and the United States.
I'm Phil Chang, co-host and co-founder.
And I'm Kenny Benucci, co-host and co-founder of This Commerce Life.
Our love is the journey to retail, and our passion is sharing that with you every week.
You're the tech guy.
Just relax, everybody, for half a second here.
You're the tech guy. Come on.
Me. Thank God I got him. That's right now. There's no podcast if he's not around. There might be a guy in front of a mic, but I don't know where it would go.
Yeah.
I'd be talking to myself in the room.
You look comfortable.
Oh, right now?
Yeah.
I guess I just had a nice mangiare.
He's got the setup,
full.
Tony. This is his spot. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The kids bought this because they were going to podcast.
Yeah.
So I figured I already paid for it, I'm sure, a couple times. So since I bought all this stuff, I may as well use it myself, right?
Yeah, there you go. It doesn't look like you and I are getting a coffee, does it?
No, I don't think so.
Hot water with honey.
Sure. That's
a night like this. I'm gonna look at this. I got a bucket like this. Come on.
I think I know you pretty well, and I'm pretty sure Tony knows you even better. I'm not sure what's in that cup. Pretty sure it's not.
You guys do whatever bets you want. I'm gonna tell you right now, hot water and honey. That's it. I ate. Man. I gotta just digest a little bit now.
Okay, that's what you need the espresso for. What's the matter with you?
I'm gonna have an espresso after this.
All right. I should have, but just stay awake.
Yeah.
You know what? I gotta get rid of the stupid because you travel. He travels more than anybody I know. This jet lag takes a couple days. I gotta get rid of it.
It takes a couple of days. Yeah.
Yeah, he's complaining because he was in Europe.
Yeah. Trapezing across Italy.
Yeah. I invited you on because I thought you'd be a nice guest, not this hostile thing here. What is this?
No. Tony and I are getting on just fine. I don't know what your problem is. Whatever you're drinking, just drink a little bit more. Tony and I, we're good.
You know what? Where's Gina? Put her on. She's a lot more nicer to talk to. Phil, you love his wife. I see his wife. She's nice. Not like this one. She's nice. Nice lady. Nice person.
That's because their heritage is the same. Your wife and my wife, their heritage is the same.
I finally saw the town. Both. We went to Calci too.
Wow.
That's the first time Amelia's been there, 37 years.
Is that right?
Right. So she got to see, thank God, because they're getting older. She got to see the Azia that was actually scary because of the spitting image of her mom. It was ridiculous. Like off the charts insanity. Mannerisms, talk, laugh, like everything. It was kind of freaky, actually. Very nice. And then all the cuisines, right? Because now I got names and faces. I can actually if someone says a Santina or an Amelia, like I actually can see what a Santina and Amelia look like. You know what I mean? Yeah, sure. It was really nice. That really was good. And then we saw Civitanova. We went up there, just took a quick run through the town, took pictures, and then Bagnoli because there's enough,
Of course.
Get the three towns, bury it. I've seen it, been there, done that.
Don't have to go back.
I didn't mind Molise, Tom.
Really? Well, Molise is nice.
I liked it, to be honest with you. I actually was kind of impressed. I thought, because we went into Puglia after. We'll digress for a minute, like usual. We went into Puglia after, and it's funny. I told somebody, like my dad and mom came over last night, and I told my dad, I said, if you would come, it would have reminded you of Mexico from like, what do you call it? The beach there between Cancun and Tulum.
The Mayan Riviera.
Like the Mayan, where it's lots of rundown, lots of deserted. The poor olive trees, unbelievable. 20 million trees they've lost.
Yes. Yeah.
Honestly, Tony, it looks like Armageddon. I'm not shitting you. Tens of thousands of trees at a time, miles and miles of dead. It's so sad because you can tell by the trunk these trees are probably 300, 400, 500 years old.
Absolutely.
It's just devastating, right? Yeah. And not going to be good for olive oil prices, I don't think, this coming year, between Spain's fires and Italy's bugs.
Yeah, well, we'll just add some transportation on top of that. We're good to go.
Let's throw a few other things. Maybe throw a war on, pick a few other things.
Why not? Why not?
Anyway, it was nice. It was very nice.
Good.
Just so you know, Phil, because Tony's wife, Emilia's town's sort of on the top of the hill, and Gina's town's sort of on the bottom of the hill, but their town is much bigger, and there's a shit ton of them in Vancouver.
Okay.
Like, I don't know,
That's
this
cool.
little town, I don't know how many people are cranked out, but there is
amazing.
tons of this. That's this one little town. It's unbelievable.
It's crazy. And look, I've been there twice now. I'm not going back.
Of course, they're all here.
You know, the first time I was a small kid, went with my parents because we had relatives, or at least we had, I'll call it paisanas, we would call it. The second time I actually went on purpose as an adult, and I just said to Gina, we're not going back.
That's it. That's it.
Done. Been there, done that.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
That's it. It's
Check that
okay.
one off.
Gotta go.
Yeah, you gotta go. And then once
Well,
you've done it, you've done it. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kenny, do you want to do an intro?
Yeah. So we'll do a quick intro for you, Tone. So tonight we have Tony Luangwan, who's president, owner, I guess, of Concord Sales National, as well as Indigo. I don't know if Indigo's sales. I'm not sure what it's actually called. But Tony's the reason I wanted him on is mostly because I really love his wife, Gina. She's super nice. And I actually thought Tony might be kind of interesting. And the reason is, one, because I do love him like a brother. But two, I think it's kind of fascinating that he really started in true conventional grocery with his days of Scott Paper. And then even when he went into Concord and bought it, et cetera, it was really much a conventional grocery play. But he was smart enough to actually take a look at the trends and the demographics and what was going on, and ended up purchasing Indigo. So it has a unique ability, because not many, I can't think of too many that have done it or done it well, to play two sides of the fence, where you get to play conventional grocer as well as natural grocer, which is pretty cool. That's not a bad place to be. So that's all the nice things I'm going to say about him. That's it for that. For the next 45 minutes, hour, my friend, it is your show. What we usually ask of people, give us an idea of who you are, where you came from. I've given a little bit, but some detail and maybe the path of how you got to where you are. Ideally, what I'm really hoping is going to happen as well is that we have a lot of young startups or people just getting into CPG, probably really don't know what to expect. Phil and I've gone through many shows, but you know, from your side and expertise of the things and hurdles and opportunities and challenges they may see. So really, truly, nothing deep. Well, you know me well enough. There's really not going to be that deep a pool. Phil's deep. Phil can do it, but mine's going to be pretty shallow. So we'll keep it there, and we'll have a nice hour conversation with you. I'm kind of excited about this one.
Well, first and foremost, thank you both for inviting me on, and looking forward to having the chat.
Yeah.
It's been a while since Keaton and I have actually seen each other, had a chance to catch up. So I'm looking forward to that, maybe first and foremost. So I think the other thing, just from a values perspective, you know, Ken, one of the things that's important to us, and especially given where we come from, is to give back to the communities around us. And if this is an opportunity to do that, I'm happy to do that. So
perfect.
I guess you mean to just start off. I see your East Vancouver sign there. Born and raised on the east side of Vancouver. BBC graduate, business program there, and started as you know, Ken, started with Scott Paper and spent my first formative years, first 14 years of my career in the CPG packaged goods side of the business. So maybe a little unusual for a Vancouverite. At the time, Scott Paper was located here in Vancouver. So I spent about half my career in sales and the other half in marketing. So that's kind of where I came from. And, you know, the food business, you know, being of Italian heritage, and I'm not sure toilet paper and bathroom tissue was what my mom thought I would get into when it came to food. I actually interviewed with a few meat companies when I first graduated from university. And I think my mother would have loved for me to go to a meat company, because she knew that I was going to get a couple of things for free, you know. So toilet paper is okay, but meat, I get the free meat.
Steak and cutlets, toilet paper.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, I know. So
It's
maybe that was a
thing.
huge disappointment for Mama. Who knows?
Not likely. Not likely.
So I spent my first formative years sort of there, and certainly took the family up and a couple of young kids and moved to Toronto. We did that for a number of years and then came back. Really, this is home for us. So my wife and myself are so I was able to really get that experience both on the sales side as well as the marketing side and the CPG world. I'd say somewhat unique, but I remember as I was looking for a business to buy and started to look around, and it was actually one of my wife, Guido, literally his name was Guido. One of Gina's uncles said, I said to him, what do you think? He said, stay with what you know. I said, okay, well, I know the food business, so let's stay in the food business. So I met my business partner at the time. We got a shop, and 22, 23 years later. So at the time, it was I'll call it a smaller business. It was BC oriented. We had both an import business as well as a small conventional brokerage business. We had 15 folks at the time, and today, combined all the businesses, 175 folks. We represent probably 630 million in wholesale sales across Canada.
Wow.
Offices in Halifax, Montreal, and Toronto. So, not bad for a guy from the east side, I guess.
I think he did pretty good. Just going to say it. I think he did pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I will give a lot of credit
good.
to your other half again, but I think you did pretty good.
Yeah. And to your point, Kim, one of the things we certainly did is grew through acquisition, and I know you mentioned it. So Indigo Natural Products being on that natural side of the business. Again, another business we bought, BC based. We bought that business, 12 years, 13 years ago. There's just a handful of folks, BC oriented. Today, again, of that total number of folks, 175, 50 of them work on the Indigo division. And we're now
12 years?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Feels like longer or shorter?
No, I felt like it was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. But I guess I've been gone that long too, right? So yeah.
So that too is a national business. So basically bought that business from the original founders and moved it from a BC business and national scope on that business, and that what we would call division as
well. I have questions. You and I have a tiny bit of what you have. So I worked at Kimberly Clark for a bunch of years, and then at J&J on the women's hygiene side of things. So get the mentality, the training that you get from CPG, like those are some of the most commodity based, you start calculating sheets, toilet sheets per sheet, cents per sheet in your head, right? You can be able to figure out double rolls, triple rolls, things like that. How do you like, 15 years of that is a long time, right? You get a lot of fundamental training there, but how do you, like, was it kind of something that you always wanted to do, was to break out and kind of run your own business? Or, because a lot of folks, jump into those companies and never really leave, right?
Well, they don't leave. I mean, you could have been,
yeah, I mean, you could have run it. They've got the maze, they've got the corporate maze, right? You go from like category guy to a key account, and then maybe you do a bit of trade marketing and then brand side, and you come right back again, you run a team, and by the time you look up, it's time to retire, right? Is kind of the way these companies run. So it is unusual to see a fellow CPGer come out and you really broke out, right? Like you went out and bought something that I'm pretty sure most of your Scott Paper guys would have been like, you're doing what? Like what? What are you doing over there, Tony? Like what is that thing, right?
Or
like,
why?
Yeah.
Well, it's a great question. It really is, Phil. So first and foremost, I have an entrepreneurial spirit, and my brother and I grew up, as I said, in East Vancouver. We grew up as musicians. So I played in a band on Commercial Drive for 5 years, did it for another 3 years. My brother and I both made our way through university doing that. So, went to university, went to high school, and did this every Friday, Saturday night. So, it even started before that. I grew up by the P&E. My brother and I would park cars in my dad's garage. And, we'd make a buck a car, and we couldn't spend it fast enough at the local grocery store going to get some confectionery, candies here and there. So, it was always a desire of mine. I always had that entrepreneurial spirit. And to be honest with you, and I know it sounds rather silly, but, you know, I didn't necessarily fit the mold, you know, just given my background and where, you know, where I came from. And, you know, what I've always appreciated, and to this day, in fact, most everything I do is modeled around that company that was Scott Paper. So everything from, you know, our P&Ls to certain HR processes, et cetera, was all done around that. But yeah, I spent a long time there. That business ultimately got sold.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the business that I had grown up in. And
Yeah, fair enough.
again, I come to the, you know, to my life with certain values that we were raised with. And the values that I saw within Scott Paper fit, but they didn't once the business was sold.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was a bit of a challenge. I'd say more than a challenge, it's bloody frightening. You know, going from a very secure position into, oh my God, what have I done? And look, I can't tell you there weren't sleepless nights, because there were. And yeah, I remember actually, Ken, I was in Europe and was having a challenge. I don't know if you remember this, but I gave you a call. I was sitting in a hotel room in Europe and I needed to move some inventory. And I called you and said, hey, look, I need your help.
Did I help you?
Yes, you did.
Oh,
Yeah, you
that was
always
nice
did.
of me.
You always did. And it was always a reciprocal thing, right? We always helped one another. But,
Yeah.
you know, there was lots of sleepless nights making these moves. And it's, you know, it's easy to sit here today and look backwards, but it's not for the faint of heart, that's for sure.
I think that's why we go down these paths. It's pretty
Yeah.
ballsy. I mean, when you know, to leave long-term security and you know, not for anything, but I mean, the three of us can give thousands of examples of exactly that. And what people did was just grind it out another 20, 25 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They would have not maybe been happy. They didn't like where it was going, but they would have just ground it out, right?
100% not happy.
Well, exactly. And at that time, were the kids around yet? Or, you know, so seriously, I mean, you know, yeah, I mean, that's nutsy, right? Because really, what are you doing, right?
Like,
you know,
in today's world, that's the same, you know, because I get that question a lot, right? I left CPG, I left a retailer to go, you know, to go work for a startup, right? And everyone asks me the same thing. It's like, one, are you crazy? Two, you know, most of them, they don't recognize the transferable skills, right? So they kind of go, well, what do you know that you're going to a startup, right? And you're kind of going, what don't you know, right? Like you worked in like pretty formidable CPG companies that taught you all the fundamentals that you needed. You just don't know what they're called because they call them their own things, right? But that's what I see when I see this move to Indigo, is like, that is the startup of the day, right? Like you basically, you know, pitched a tent.
It started before that. And let me make a couple of comments. So
yeah,
you know, as much as we learned from our CPG experience, and we did, probably the most amount that I ever learned was from my father. You know, he just had a value system. He worked hard.
Yeah.
You know, my dad was an Italian immigrant. He had nothing. You know, it's the traditional, typical story. My dad owned 5 rental homes. You know, that's just what he did, and it was easy for me. And you know, I did the same thing. So by the time I got to where I was working, you know, on the weekends, working my way through university, saved some money, bought some properties, did whatever, you know, my wife and I, Gina and I, were doing okay from a financial perspective. And again, it doesn't make it any easier, but I didn't learn that at Scott Paper.
Right.
I learned that by watching mom and dad and watching how hard they worked. And, you know, at the end of it, you know, I'm here today because of them, you know, what they taught me. Right. Yeah, sure. I learned how to run a P&L. I learned how to put a sales pitch together. You know, I ran advertising campaigns when I was at Scott Paper in the marketing department. But what I really, truly learned about life and how to succeed was my parents.
And the parents ran P&Ls too, eh? Not formalized, right? I mean, what they did. How much is coming in? How much is going out? How much are we saving?
It might have been
how do we buy?
Then, right? It might have been up here, or it might have been on
well,
the
it's not a
right?
formalized P&L, but you're you know, it's those things stick.
Yeah.
right?
I think the one thing that they didn't have, and this is the part that I think is the most challenging, is, they were very cautious, right?
Yeah.
They didn't go out there and mortgage to the hilt.
No.
They went out and bought a house, bought a car, paid cash for it.
Yeah.
Cash money. And, I think that's where maybe the differences are. It's still being cautious. And I remember having this conversation with my wife, and we were sitting in our home, and I said to her, I said, look, Gina, as long as we have a roof over our head, we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that comfort level of having the support in the family, not just my wife and my kids, but broader, and knowing that, hey, if it all fell apart, at least I had a roof over my head, which again is very much, what our parents taught us.
Totally.
Again, still ballsy, still sleepless nights, but that's really where it started. And I've never forgotten it, never.
Yeah.
Wow.
I still think it's a little abnormal in the sense of the risk aspect, though. I really do.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, because the buying the homes and stuff, there's definitively a risk there. But we all know, really and truly, you buy it, even if you can't do it in 5-10 years, the risk is there's no risk anymore. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're new in the long haul. It's really not that risky. It's a little uncomfortable at the beginning, but but literally to quit something and to start something, that inherently is just a lot of risk. I mean, it could be calculated risk. It could be comfortable risk, depending on what level of risk you like to take. But our upbringings typically don't lend really well to risk, right? And I really do find it, buying a home is really not risky. It's expensive. Might freak you out a little bit, but really the risk is mitigated. Buying a business, I mean, shit, you know what it's like, Tony. I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you gotta.
What you're betting on, Ken, at the end of the day, is you're betting on yourself.
Well, that's the only bet you should ever make, because that's the only one you can control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right? I go back to, again, what I learned growing up and watching my parents as hard work.
Exactly.
Never give up.
Yeah.
You're gonna succeed. You just go.
Just keep going, right? Head down.
Say it again. It doesn't mean you don't have sleepless nights, but at the end of it, that is what it is.
So when was Concord? So when did Concord start? When was that?
So Concord was the base sort of where it was, and that started about 60 years ago. That was started by my business partner's father.
Right. I worked for him, remember?
Yes, that's right.
I did a summer with them when I was still in the university.
So that was 23 years ago. So again, smaller business. Wasn't looking for another job. Working through, talking about an entrepreneur, he has that through and through. And he was looking for someone to manage the business. I was looking to buy a business. So that's when we became partners. And really that's where it started, and building that business from the ground up. Olive oil was one of the things that started with. It was a small little business at the time.
Was Barrio from that point too? So you've had Barrio that long?
Yeah, my kid bought the business just prior to me arriving there. It was a $350,000 business.
In Canada?
In Canada. Well, it was only in British Columbia, I remember.
Right.
So that business today, it's well north of 10 million today.
Wow.
Wow.
That's insanity. That's crazy.
Yeah, again, but it's just, just focused on a goal.
Yeah, but shit, that's pretty good.
Work at it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's impressive though.
Get a couple of breaks here and there.
Breaks are mostly created.
Yeah.
Right? They happen for sure, but they're typically created because you work at them and then the break happens. So, luck doesn't fall from the sky, unfortunately, most times. Yeah. Wow. So at that time, so what you start Concord here. So what's the next move? You just open an office in Toronto, you buy an office in Toronto, you team up with somebody in Toronto, or?
Yeah, so we go through it. We built a business here in British Columbia on the brokerage side, so that's what we own. But really what we built was the import side. So with brands like Leap area. We started to build that business across the country. It's tough slugging. You know, I can't tell you how many trips to Toronto I had and having to chat to, you know, the different buyers there. And it was Oshawa at the time. You know, got our first break. In fact, it was now called Sobeys. They gave us our first break. So we got that listing. You know, just a lot of hard work. 15 minutes, got it relisted, spending all kinds of money, and you know, understanding what it took to make it happen. Because again, what people don't understand is, you know, on the import side of the business, not just the sales brokerage side of the business, it requires capital.
Right.
You have to fund inventory and receivables. It's again, not faint of heart. So, but you need to have the backing and the understanding. So that's really where the business started to take off, and really where that nationalization of the business came from. And we had strategic partners across the country we all ran the Concord National Plan. And that's what we were. We did that for a long, long time. So as I say, about 12 or so years ago, you know, as we were starting to build the other businesses, we looked at around, and again, opportunities are what opportunities are. And the owners of the Indigo business started looking and go, I'm not sure we can run a BC business anymore. Folks from the east were coming west, and you know, did they have the wherewithal to move it westward? And
right.
Obviously, we had already done that. I'd already done that, so we cut our deal to buy that business, and ultimately, as I say, we grew that business. We're now 50 folks across the country just on the Indigo side of the business on the natural organic. What we did a year and a half ago, April 1st, 2021, is we actually consolidated all of the brokerage businesses. So today we are one company with two divisions, and we're national in scope. So there are no longer offices that are owned by individual people. There's no longer a strategic alliance. Today we are one company. We formed technically a limited liability partnership. And that's the brokerage business today. So by the former owners, now we have partners together across the country, and we still own the import distribution businesses. Those are really the two businesses that we have today, and they are interdependent. We bring into the country from around the world is sold by the brokerage business, either the Indigo team on the natural side or Concord on the conventional side. Mm-hmm. And any help that they need on that business needs on the import distribution side, we bring in that other business. So it's worked really well for us. But honestly, what I'm looking at is the next 3 to 5 to 10 years, and where do we need to go from here. So that's really what we're trying to keep our eye on now. Is keep that business where we are, continue to grow it, but what's it going to look like in, you know, going forward. So that's the challenging part.
So with no trade secrets, you don't have to tell anything you don't want to tell. But what do you see? What do you think this looks like in the next 5 to 10? Your business or in general? What are you feeling?
Yeah. Well, I think the market's going to continue to change. Consumer patterns are going to shift. They're going to continue to shift. So we're going to need to be there. So I would say, certainly from my perspective, we're going to stay within those channels, the food channels, although we sell some non-food items today. But I think the consumer's going to shift. I think natural organic is going to continue. I think it's going to grow faster than conventional. It has been. I think it'll continue to do that. So we're betting on that. We're putting more resources up against the natural organic side of the business. But where consumers buy that, those products are going to change. They're no longer going to buy it exclusively at a Goodness Me or a Whole Foods. And that's not a new trend. That's continuing. But the dynamics of that marketplace change.
Right.
So there's going to be new competition, and we have to stay ahead of it. The challenge is looking for those new categories, looking on which ones we think are going to win, and betting behind those. And that's the most challenging part. In my view, there's lots of runway. On the natural organic side, so that'll continue to grow. I expect that to be the majority of our growth as we move forward. And one of the things we already have done is we're starting to import products that are natural organic. We actually own a couple of brands as well. So that to me is another opportunity to grow and to build our business. I think the US for us is another opportunity, a big one. That's a big scary one.
That's a scary one.
That's a scary one. You know, if we do it, how we do it, I think is going to be the real key to it. But it is, and this is certainly another learning for me, is just keep your options open. Don't close anything off. Before you say no, I'd rather say, well, let me think about it.
Right.
Give it some thought. So continue to change. The retailer community is just in so much consolidation. It's not good.
There's nobody left, my friend. Like, what do you got? You got like 5 guys in the whole country. Right? I mean, seriously.
Maybe 4.
Well, I threw Walmart and Costco in there too. You know what I mean? But there's really, what do you have? You got Loblaws, Walmart, Costco, Sobeys, Metro Save-On, pretend it's one. They probably should have bought each other or done something years ago. I mean, what do you have? You got 5 guys. Like, seriously, there's really, it's not easy. It's, you know, so a quick spin on that one. So, you know, you got young, we got a lot of young, like I said, a lot of young brands coming in. You know, what do they do? Like, how do you manage? You know, like, what advice do you give people, like, when they come into you in a sense? Like, you come with a natural product, you can probably for the next couple of years still focus on a natural channel, the Goodness Me's, Nature's Emporiums, Whole Foods, and probably do relatively well. But we know the other side. I mean, they're a little slow on the uptake, but they will get there a lot quicker than they've sort of done already. But like, how do you know, who are you playing with? You got nobody to play with anymore.
Yeah, it's pretty tough to build the national business if you're not with the national players, and particularly given the trend that has gone on, which will continue, which is more of the natural organic side will be sold through the conventional channel. You know, that being said, there still are some retailers, still are some options for us. You know, when we look at the overall marketplace, some will play ball with you, and that to me is the key.
Right. You
know, especially if you need to also understand what your expertise is, and you know, if you've cooked it in the kitchen, you know, making it in the basement, then you know, my certain recommendation is to hire someone like ourselves, and you know, in that industry where we can help guide and direct. But it's a bit of what we talked about, even with my own, you know, career path, and what I've done is, you know, you don't have to do it overnight. Be committed to a goal, find a way, be creative, keep your mind open, pick good partners, which isn't always easy. You know, partners are like getting married.
Yeah.
So, you know, try to do your best to choose wisely, and move forward. So, you know, I'm a big proponent of, you know, we did this in our career together, Ken. It's, you know, look for someone who's prepared to take a risk, go give it a try, you know, test out the concept. Don't be going crazy by spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on overthinking and not knowing if it's going to succeed, because that just gets you in the door. It gets you no trial, no repeat.
Right.
None of those. So, you know, test the concept.
You know what the allure is, though, Tony? It's hard for, you know what the allure is they'll look and everybody will be the next Vega, the next Manitoba Harvest, the next Burt's Bees, you know, the next Nick's, where, you know, what all you have to do is just make it, go out there, put it in the stores, and you can sell the following week for billions, right? Isn't that how it works?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely not.
I don't know. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, well, you've heard
a million times, in fact.
Yeah, you've heard wrong. Yeah, and when that's what I mean by finding the right partners, getting, you know, the right advice, and you can blow your brains out, go to the bank, mortgage your house, do whatever you're going to do, and not have anything by the time it's all said and done.
Right.
So, you know, it is about, you know, the right markets. You know, if you live in Toronto, look for those options. You know, Montreal, Quebec-based brands love Quebec-based brands.
Totally.
Those are options. You know, I look even here, and again, I think there's still opportunities to think locally and get engaged in some of those local companies, or even some of the ones that are national who still try to behave local in nature. Right. You know, I will take a 10 or 15 store chain and test the concept.
Right.
Remember, if you own that business, you need to fund it too.
Yeah.
Not just the cost of doing business, but your inventory and receivables. You know, we've heard the term before, cash is king. Well, that's certainly the case in an entrepreneurial business. And, you know, when you're developing a product, you're new in the market, you absolutely have to have the cash in order to go.
You know, I wanted to ask you about this because I like for sure, like twice, I think. So Kenny and I've had a whole bunch of calls today. I seem to spend all my time with Kenny now. But
I feel bad for him too.
But on two of these, we were talking to the brands, not specifically about it, but their troubles originated with, you know, not poorly, but improper execution of pricing. You know, and it occurs to me that the market, you know, Kenny talked about, you know, the big guys being slow, but I think that they're faster than they've ever been. And so it's like your margin for error on pricing it's almost unrecoverable now. Do you know what I mean? Like you start, that's my perception of it. So I wanted to ask you about that, because my perception is if you start with the wrong pricing, you get into the market. It used to be you had some room to go because the lag time between, you know, kind of the smaller guys and the big guys, there was some time to adjust. But now the big guys are catching up. They realize they see the new stuff faster and they react faster, and that gives you less time. So it almost makes bad pricing fatal in a way, you know, because you get jammed up really fast.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure I'm going to give you feedback specifically, Phil, on that comment, but I'm going to just take some comments overall. You know,
yeah,
I view myself as a sales and marketing guy.
Yeah.
The way I've saved my butt so many times is being a finance guy. So, you know, might not be the sexiest of ways to go about it, and there's a lot of time with accountants and finance and bank and whatever else. But, you know, if I have a piece of advice to entrepreneurs, again, to your point, is know your financials, understand it. You know, just don't go out there and say, wow, look at this incredible product I have. Boy, oh boy. So that sort of ties into your comment, you know, around making sure you have the right pricing, make sure you have enough margin. And again, it sounds kind of stupid, but you know, you can always go down. Good luck trying to get back up again. So,
well, you know, you can't. Down's easy. Down is easy. Up.
So starting at a higher price, you know, giving your brand and your product value is not a bad place to start, and therefore you're going to have more margin. But
right.
Again, margin is one thing, cash is quite another. Right?
Yeah.
Income statements and balance sheets. Oh boy, right? So that would be one. The other thing when you look at these pieces and you know, are the big guys moving faster? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think what they have learned, it's better to buy than to build.
Yeah, I think they've learned that too.
Yeah.
And if they're smart enough, and not all of them are, what they will do is remember the entrepreneurial spirit that got those brands to where they are.
Yeah.
But you know, it's typical. Oh, you know what? We have this massive infrastructure, and we have a sales team. You know, let's let our guys who are used to selling, you know, items, etc. Let's go ahead and let them sell it.
Yeah.
It's a recipe for disaster, but you know, they buy the brand, it has equity, and how many times have we seen that fail, and then they're selling it again in 2 years from now.
Yeah,
but that could be the next path down the retail side, because now we've had retailers doing the same. If you can't build a Nature's Path or you know, well.ca or whatever, a Whole Foods, buy it. Right. And then what you hope and pray is they don't do the same stupid thing that was done on the brand side, where you bought it and then, well, of course you know better because you were bigger and you bought them. So by virtue of that, you should definitely know more than they know about their business. And then how many brands have we seen go, you know, completely sideways, you know, because some numbnuts thought he knew what he was doing or she knew what he was doing, and Really didn't know what the hell
Must
they
be
were doing.
Whole Foods. Yeah, we don't see it here because it's, just, north of 15, 16 locations, but just any connectivity in the US, you just see how they're behaving and how they're acting. Again, market share is one thing, profitability is quite another.
Well, it's just exactly. I mean, I just don't. Yeah, it's gonna be unfortunate. Because it'd be interesting to see what happens in our province. Like Phil doesn't have it. Like we've had traditionally a lot of independents in BC. I don't know what Ontario's had is more population, but we seem to have a shit ton of independent or had a shit ton of independents.
Yeah.
Recently, in recent times, we've seemed to or be losing them a mile a minute. Like they're just less and less. We're down to really a couple players only, right?
A bit of a retirement plan too, right?
I guess
you
so.
Look at different retailers across the country, and two that ring true to me is Longo's being one.
Right.
Certainly got bought by Sobeys, and you look at Quality Foods here. I'm not making comment if it's good or bad, but
well, choice is the same. It was the same idea. The families, absolutely. I guess, and I'm not blaming the families in the slightest either. I totally get it. I just find it sometimes unfortunate that they go where they go.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sad about the Longo's thing. I mean, I hope Sobeys doesn't go tinkering with it too much. I have one down the street where we're loyal. We love that place, right? Because they really have turned it into our neighborhood market. They know us, they know what we want. Do you know what I mean? Like all those things that people love about local retailers. And so when I heard that story, I was like, no, but hopefully they don't mess around with it too
but
much.
so far so good, Phil. And Sobeys has certainly done that with other businesses as well. The other one that comes to mind is Farm Boy, and what they're doing there, it's similar to what they're doing with Longo's. Is that they're investing dollars that otherwise they wouldn't have in the short term. So that's not a bad thing. And for sure today they're letting those retailers run their business because they're successful. Again, this is the same. It's the parallel we're talking about with brands.
Same thing.
And I would even say with choices in Quality Foods, in the BC marketplace, where I think they are letting them run their business today. And I think as long as they continue to be quote unquote successful, whatever the parent thinks is successful,
right? Whatever that means,
then let them do that. But I think they have been, and those two in particular have been much smarter, than others. And again, you look at the large CPG companies, and they look at it, they absorb it, and
not so much.
They think, oh, we've got this, but
not so much.
Again, it's a different mentality, right? It's
a
different way to run it. But I guess to a degree, it's no different than what we have done. We have two divisions, right? One is an Indigo. They carry an Indigo card. There's a Concord National. They carry a Concord National card. And other than consolidating the back end of our business, we don't need two payroll pieces. We don't need more accounting people, but our customers and our clients won't see that. So we have individuals that run those businesses, and they're responsible for their P&L. So we too are trying to learn from that, keep that uniqueness of those, what I would call brands.
Well, they're two distinct brands, right?
Yeah.
They talk to different people. They really do. I mean, it's a different talk. It's a different, it's just different. It is. And as soon as you try to make, like you said, the back end, human resources is human resources, payroll is payroll. How you manage receivables and payables, it's accounting. They're just functions. But the front side is people and relationships and how you actually conduct business, not worry about how business is sort of managed. It's a conduct. It's different. You talk differently when you're in with the natural guys than you do with the conventional guys. It's just a different game.
I dress differently.
100%. I've never seen you in the old days. You stopped wearing ties. I don't know what happened.
Yeah. Even the offices themselves look different.
And they should. They're different.
Yeah.
Right? It's like no different than the kids. The kids are different. Your kids are different. My kids are different. Phil's kids are different. Right? Same house. They don't all have to be the same. You can have some independence, right? I guess.
It's exciting. What are there brands that you represent that you're in the same way that, you know, every parent says they don't have favorite children? Are there ones that are more interesting than others?
Absolutely not.
100% no. 100% no.
We love all our children.
This is being recorded, Phil. No, that is so untrue.
I love my children equally.
Every day.
You know, it's interesting. You know, I guess the best way to answer it is certain categories speak to us. You know, and given our heritage and where we've come from, you know, there are certain ones that, yeah, they absolutely have an appeal. But this is where the training comes in. So, you know, you might, quote unquote, you know, have a favorite child, not in our household, but,
no,
yeah, but if we
houses.
did, you know, and things may be executed differently, but, you know, you're looking for them all to succeed.
Right.
And so that's where the fundamentals come in. You know, where's the category? Is it growing? Is it not? What segments of the category should we be in? Are we in the right size? What's the price point? Okay, well, the competitor is here. This is where we should be. Is it sold on deal? Is it not sold on deal? You know, all of those things are the same fundamentals, but, you know, of Italian heritage, you know, we import Dolce Gabbana pasta. If you don't think I don't love that product, you're sadly mistaken. You know, I mean, it's a tremendous product. Of course, it comes from Campania, which is the area that my family is from. It's just outside of Naples. I mean, I've been to the facility. I know the owner. You know, of course, you get passionate about, you know, those brands, but, you know, we also have a business to run. But they're outstanding products, and I love it. We don't need anything but in our household when it comes to pasta. So, but yeah, in the day, we still have a business to run, and you know, we try our best to treat each and every one, I'll say equally, but really it's about developing that unique strategy. Again, just like children, right? Just because my son has a particular way, you know, about him, I don't treat him the same way as my daughter, but
yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Well, the role of the parent, whether it's the parent within the CPG world, is they're all different kids, and they all learn differently, and they all behave differently. And you just take the good and the bad, and, you know, you just try to get them to be the best they can be. Although there are days where their preference for one or the other is definitively there. We just won't say which day or which kid, but it does happen.
Yeah, it's a good analogy. And I go back to what we started talking about is, you know, our upbringing and values. Sure. And, you know, those stay with you. And, you know, if there's something that, you know, we're talking about kids, if there's anything I want to pass along to my children, I know Ken's the same way, is it those values that our parents taught us. And it's no different when it comes to brands. It's, you know, we want them to do well, we want them to succeed, and we try to pass along some of those fundamentals. And we've talked about some of them today. Just don't go blow your brains up. But you know, we have to be at X, Y, and Z. Well, you don't have to be.
Those are all choices that you make. You
Yeah.
don't have to do it just because everybody else is doing it or you think you do. You know, you may want to do it, but that's much different than a have to do it. Right.
And just like children, sometimes I listen, sometimes they don't.
Exactly. And sometimes they just need to fall down.
Sometimes they need to fall down. Yeah.
You know, it's always the same. Like my dad say, it's scraping a knee, scratching a nose. It's not gonna kill them. They'll learn.
Try not to let them break a leg.
Yeah, but even that's not the end of the world. Do you know what I mean? Like there's degrees of you know, but you're right. I mean, it's just one of those things you got to just let them do sometimes.
Yeah.
Try not to let them sell their skateboard for $2 and, you know, things like that. But yeah, other than that, go fall down, go figure it out. But
yeah, life will go on. Life will go on.
Amazing.
Very interesting. Very cool.
Tony, thank you for coming on.
That's bud.
This has been amazing.
Hopefully that was a relatively painless 50 minutes.
Yeah, that was great. Good to catch up with you both. And I look forward to seeing you in person next month.
Yes.
Well, we're both in. We're
Yes, we're both in.
podcasting
We're
on
podcasting.
on Friday, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
we'll see you at the show on Saturday for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again
Amazing.
for the invite. Appreciate it.
Thanks for
Good
coming
stuff with
on.
the book.
I know.
Thanks for coming on.
I'm glad
Yeah.
you did. I think it's more of a help than you actually probably think it is, right? So if people wanted potentially maybe to reach out or ask you potentially some questions, or looking for some guidance, or looking to maybe partner up with Concord Indigo, best way to get a hold of Mr. Luongo.
Yeah, I would just go onto the website, to be honest, and my coordinates are there, and either one, Concord or Indigo, and you'll find me there. Happy to have the conversation. And again, one of the learnings is we're not too big for our britches, right? We need to make sure that we treat everyone as equally as we can.
Exactly.
Be respectful to everyone, right? So
you're a good boy.
Amazing. Thanks, Tony.
All right, you take care.
Tony, take care.
Okay.
Phil, hang on for a bit.
Night.
Tony, we'll chat with you in a couple weeks, I guess, in TO.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Say hi to Jane and the kids.
Hey.
Will do.
Ciao. He's been doing it for a long time, eh?
He has.
And he's very steady.
Yeah. But it's
but it's smart.
No, really, I think it's cool,
methodical. Like he really just thinks.
Yeah. But right? I do think like most entrepreneurs that kind of like go and do their own thing, I think he he's a pretty humble guy, so there's a bit of that in there, but he also, I think he fails to appreciate how big of a move it was at that time. I think it's a really big move. Like I just
personally think it's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, because I've known Tony for a long time.
Yeah.
But when you've got young children and you're leaving steady job and you're putting money at risk, I don't care what that's a big fucking deal. That's a lot of stuff happening, and that's a scary move. And again, like, he's lucky, he's got good family support, etc. But one of the things that I do like what he says, and I think this is where a lot fall apart, and why I've had failures too, to be honest with you, is the sexiness of P&Ls and income statements and balance statements and bank statements is really minimal. There's really not a lot of sexiness in playing that. And the sexiness is going out and grabbing the accounts and just sell. And, but you lose sight that, again, and we've had this discussion how many times with how many people that we've worked with. Revenues are great, but I still have not met anybody who banks revenue.
No, not at all.
I've tried, I've looked, because I'm trying to find the one so that I can replicate it. Yeah. Because if I can bank the revenues, fuck, I'm laughing, man. That would be stellar.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's important I'm glad he said it, because I think that's what a lot of the people we've probably had on neglect too, is don't forget the unsexy, boring part, which is the financials, but that's all that's going to keep you going. Like, you have to focus on it.
If you like, I guess I can't say this enough, is you kind of go, we say that, but here's a guy who like, this is what he does day in and day out. And the first place he started was financials, right? Like I asked him, how do you keep people from like falling off cliffs? And he went, go do the math first, right? Like, so to me, it's kind of a big deal.
But what? That doesn't sell books. That doesn't get you on television. You know what I mean? I'm not saying Tony wants to do that. That's humdrum.
Stuff
that nobody wants
your
to
regular,
hear. And but that's what, and that's why I was getting at, like, the old school Italian, Chinese, our cultures really value property. I mean, they do. I mean, that's ingrained into our worlds, right? And that's why they try to buy a little bit here, because there's risk is really, it's a mitigated risk. There's definitively risk. I appreciate that you can overextend. That's a different risk. But if you do it methodically and thinking, it's not really risky. It's very few situations in life where it doesn't pay back. There's not a lot of, catastrophic real estate examples per se. Yes, there are, and people can chime in. I know there are, but realistically, if you're able to buy a home or two, you could do a lot more in the long run than not.
Yeah, it's true.
But anywho,
it's true.
I'm glad he came on.
It was cool. I'm glad he came on.
No, I do.
That's very
Go
cool.
catch up with him in Toronto too. It's hard not to love Tony. Tony's an awesome guy. Like he really is. He's just. I like
him already.
Yeah, he's a good soul.
We spent the 45 here. I had 5
and
minutes
honestly,
with him
Gina's way nicer than Tony. Just really clear. Like Gina's way nicer than Tony.
Okay.
Trust me on that one.
I trust you.
That's it.
That is it. Okay. Thanks for listening.
Thank you everybody for joining in and tuning in.